When you think of guerrilla warfare, what comes to mind? Maybe the Viet Cong in the 20th century, right? But what if I told you that the playbook for this type of fighting was written in Vietnam 2,000 years ago? That's right. Long before modern conflicts, the ancestors of the Vietnamese people were mastering the art of the underdog, using their wits and their environment to fend off powerful invaders. Today, we're diving deep into the jungles and rice paddies of ancient Vietnam to uncover the origins of guerrilla warfare. Our story begins in the 1st century AD, a time when the mighty Han dynasty of China was expanding its empire southward. This region, known then as Chuazi, which is now northern Vietnam, was rich in resources and strategically important. The Han Empire, with its massive, well-organized armies, disciplined legions, and advanced weaponry, seemed unstoppable. On paper, it was a total mismatch. The local people, a collection of tribes known as the Lac Viet, had no standing army, no fortified cities to rival those of the Han, and certainly no matching military technology. So, how did they resist? This is where the genius of their strategy comes into play. They didn't meet the invaders head-on in pitched battles. That would have been suicide. Instead, they melted into the landscape they knew so intimately. The dense, triple canopy jungles, the winding rivers, the sprawling rice paddies, and the treacherous mountains weren't obstacles to them. They were weapons. One of the earliest and most legendary examples of this resistance was led by two remarkable figures, the Trung sisters. In the year 40 AD, Trung Trac and Trung Ni, two noblewomen, rallied the local lords and the common people to rise up against Han rule. It wasn't just a military campaign, it was a popular uprising. The Trung sisters understood a fundamental principle of guerrilla warfare. You need the support of the people. The local population provided food, shelter, and most importantly, intelligence. They were the eyes and ears of the rebellion. Villages would track Han troop movements and relay the information, allowing the rebels to choose their battles carefully. So, what did these battles look like? Forget massive formations clashing on an open field. Think small, lightning-fast raids. A group of rebels would emerge from the jungle, strike a Han supply convoy, capture weapons and food, and then vanish back into the wilderness before a proper response could be mustered. These hit-and-run tactics were incredibly effective. They disrupted supply lines, creating hunger and depleting morale among the Han soldiers, who were fighting far from home in an unfamiliar and hostile environment. The goal wasn't to annihilate the enemy in one go, but to bleed them slowly, to wear them down physically and psychologically. The environment itself was a key player. The Lac Viet fighters used the terrain to their advantage in brilliant ways. They set up ambushes along narrow jungle paths where the Han army couldn't use its superior numbers. They used a complex network of rivers and canals for rapid movement, appearing where they were least expected. Imagine being a Han soldier, marching through a dense, humid jungle. The air is thick, strange insects are buzzing, and you can't see more than a few feet in any direction. Suddenly, arrows fly from the trees, chaos erupts, and just as quickly, the attackers are gone. The psychological toll of this constant, unseen threat was immense. Another key tactic was the use of traps. The rebels were masters of improvisation, using natural materials to create deadly surprises. They dug pits filled with sharpened bamboo stakes, known as punji sticks, and cleverly concealed them with leaves and branches. These could cripple a soldier or a horse, slowing down an entire column. They also created tripwires linked to bent bamboo saplings, which would spring back and release a volley of arrows or a heavy log. These traps not only inflicted casualties, but also forced the Han soldiers to move slowly and cautiously, further draining their energy and morale. They were fighting not just an army, but the land itself. The rebellion of the Trung sisters was incredibly successful at first. They managed to drive the Han out and establish an independent state for a brief, glorious period of 3 years. This early victory sent a powerful message. Even a seemingly invincible empire could be challenged, and it cemented the core principles of guerrilla warfare into the Vietnamese strategic mindset. Reliance on the people, knowledge of the terrain, hit-and-run attacks, and psychological warfare. Although the Han dynasty eventually sent a massive expeditionary force and crushed the rebellion, the legend of the Trung sisters and their methods endured. Their story became a foundational myth for the Vietnamese people, a symbol of their fierce independence and their unique way of fighting. And this wasn't a one-off event. This pattern of resistance repeated itself throughout Vietnamese history. Fast forward a few centuries to the 10th century. A general named Ngo Quyen faced another invading Chinese force. This time, the enemy was coming by sea, up the Bach Dang River. Ngo Quyen knew he couldn't match the enemy's naval power directly. So, what did he do? He took a page from the ancient guerrilla playbook and adapted it. He ordered his men to plant massive, iron-tipped wooden stakes into the riverbed, hidden just below the surface of the water during high tide. He then used a small fleet to lure the enemy fleet upriver at high tide, right over the hidden stakes. As the tide went out, the stakes were revealed, and the massive enemy ships were impaled, trapped, and utterly destroyed. It was a brilliant use of environmental knowledge and strategic deception. He didn't just fight the enemy, he made the river fight for him. This victory at the Battle of Bach Dang River in 938 finally ended 1,000 years of direct Chinese domination and established a long-lasting independent Vietnamese state. Over the next 1,000 years, Vietnamese strategists continued to refine these methods. When the Mongol hordes of Kublai Khan, who had conquered much of Asia and Europe, tried to invade Vietnam in the 13th century, they were defeated not once, but 3 times. General Tran Hung Dao famously employed scorched earth tactics, ordering villagers to hide their rice and retreat to the jungles. This left a massive Mongol army with nothing to eat, starving them out. He combined this with constant harassment, hit-and-run attacks, and another legendary battle at the Bach Dang River, once again using the same stake trap strategy as Ngo Quyen. The lesson is clear. From the Trung sisters to Ngo Quyen to Tran Hung Tao, the Vietnamese learned that their greatest strength wasn't in matching their enemy's power, but in negating it. They turned their perceived weakness, a lack of a large conventional army, into a strength. They fought on their own terms, in their own backyard, using rules they wrote themselves. They understood that warfare isn't just about soldiers and weapons. It's about logistics, morale, and the will of the people. This ancient legacy of fighting smart, not just hard, flowed directly into the 20th century. The strategies used against the French, and later the Americans, the tunnels, the traps, the popular support, the hit-and-run raids were not new inventions. They were the modern application of a military tradition that was 2 millennia old. They were the echo of the Trung sisters, riding elephants into battle, and the genius of Ngo Quyen, using the tides as a weapon. So, the next time you hear about guerrilla warfare, remember that its roots run incredibly deep. They stretch all the way back to the jungles and rivers of ancient Vietnam. What a resilient people learned to turn the tables on empires, proving that with enough courage, creativity, and knowledge of your own environment, no enemy is truly invincible. It's a powerful lesson from history that still resonates today. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into ancient military strategy as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what other historical topics you'd like to see covered. See you next time.